Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the final few quests that remain in the Gamma style rifts. On screen you'll see now arrows indicating the locations of these rifts, and I'm pretty excited for them because there are a bunch of these rifts that are pretty unique. So before we jump into those rifts, make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, as we've got more videos just like this coming your way in the future, and we've recently hit 50 subscribers, which is a huge milestone, so I thank you so much, and I look forward to continuing to bring you daily content as we move forward. Now without further ado, let's jump into the first rift. So the first rift that we'll be having a look at today is our favorite rift. This is the rift that we've used for all of the character spotlights, just because it provides a pretty easily accessible playing ground to showcase their abilities. But today, instead of playing through it like we normally do, we will be going for the 3-star clear. Now this clear is pretty straightforward. It does have a time constraint at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but that's relatively easy to hit, especially when you take into consideration that one of the secondary qualifications for clearing this out is dealing 270,000 damage using extreme attacks, which is honestly pretty simple to do. As long as you build up your extreme gauges for all of your team and unleash them all at once, you should easily hit this threshold, as long as you get it before like the 125 milestone of enemies defeated out of the 200 that we're gunning for. So as you'll see here, we have stuck with our regular cast of characters just because they do seem to be pretty highly effective in clearing these enemies out. I am using Miles' Elektra web a lot, as this is a very small enclosed arena and it allows us to burst down some of these enemies pretty efficiently. I'm focusing mainly on providing the team or the synergy attacks on these, as it will allow everyone to build up their extreme meter a little bit quicker. But as you can see, we are just blitzing through these characters. We're almost halfway through the clear condition of getting 200 enemies. And we do take some time to double back and throw in a couple of just standard punches and kicks to rebuild up the EP bar. But we're about 3/4 of the way there on the extreme meter for all of our characters, and we're coming up on that 150 mark, which is kind of the critical area. Do keep in mind that you do have some stronger opponents that start showing up with their stagger bars, but at this point we've got the extreme bars active for everyone. So we've got the extreme attack active for Miles. Thanos, I had to get Gambit up off the ground, but we did get his and Wolverine's active as well. And as you can see, we've got 1.8 million damage that came up from those extreme attacks. So it's really quite simple, and a couple of adamantium uppercuts from Wolverine will finish out this quest and get us the 3-star clear. Now the next quest that we'll be having a look at is a unique quest in that we haven't showcased one of these just yet. And these are quests that are scattered out throughout the different difficulties. Basically what it is it's a solo mission where you are assigned a character, and there are parameters that you have to meet with that character and that character's moveset in order to beat the challenge and move on. Today we'll be showcasing 4 of these character-specific missions, starting with this one with Spider-Man. Now Spider-Man's is pretty simple. Of course, as soon as you get the clear, you can get a couple of rank up materials, and it also will immediately unlock his alternate costume that comes with clearing out this rift. We'll showcase all the alternate costumes that get unlocked by clearing these rifts at the end of the video. And the bigger challenge that I found with this was not defeating 45 enemies, because there's plenty of enemies for you to defeat as you go through the quest, but more so clearing it in the 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So in the segment that I show you, we will be reviewing the 3 minute and 30 second clear, as I will be demonstrating the best strategy that I've found to getting this cleared out within that time constraint. So this does have us taking on the Hand, and typically when you go through this portion of the story quest, you just have to move the puzzle pieces around. But here, we have some members of the Hand that are popping up to make our job a little bit more difficult. But as long as you prioritize these top two. I found you really don't need to worry too much about the hand soldiers because they don't tend to move around a whole lot. Now, one thing that I didn't really recognize with Spider-Man is he actually will damage enemies in his nearby vicinity just by using his swinging attack. And I'd assume that that's the case for all and any spider characters. Now, I used a little bit of his Web Blossom attack to burst down some of the bigger grouped up characters down here at the bottom. But once we've got this room unlocked, we are just going to make a mad dash for the final room where the majority of the enemies we need to defeat are. So just web slinging around these enemies that pop up over these floor traps. And as a matter of fact, this room not being the final one, you don't need to even fight the characters that are there. Now, I did stop momentarily to regain some of my MP bar from the crates there. And down this hallway we go. And this is one of the final turns that we have, because just up this staircase is the final room where we will need to defeat the enemies that are present in order to get the full clear. Now, there's a couple of more boxes here that will give us some MP, and I was hoping that behind this banner we would be able to burst down this box and get either some EP or some health. That unfortunately was not the case, so we just continue forward into this room where we have 21 enemies that will appear that we need to take care of. So I started out with the Web Blossom just because that is a 360-degree area of attack that will burst down a lot of the smaller grunts that don't have a stagger bar. And his aerial attack is actually a lot more powerful than I had anticipated, as you can mash it on your way down to put out consistent firepower and really burst down but enemies as long as you target them correctly. Now, thankfully, with this quest, there's not a reducing damage constituent to it. And additionally to that, as long as you prioritize your EP attacks and try to get these grunts down that are throwing the bombs at you long range, you really shouldn't have anything to worry about. Now, I don't have a whole lot of EP left, so I am trying to make the most of it count. This giant web ball attack that I end up using, which I don't recall the name of, is quite good at bursting down some of these larger characters because it deals a substantial amount of health, even taking into consideration the stagger bar that you have to deplete. So you saw there, it took a big chunk out of his stamina bar as well as his health bar. But just like that, we have the trial cleared out, and that gives us the full 3-star clear because it gives us the 3-minute and 30-second time parameter. Now, for the next rift that we have here, it's another solo type. This is going to be the Hulk rift. And the Hulk is a very burly character who outputs quite a hefty amount of damage. So you really shouldn't have to worry too much about getting the clear for one part. As long as you strategize your attacks efficiently, you really shouldn't have anything to worry about with finishing in the 2 minutes and 30-second time frame either. And actually, the one that I had to run this for a second time was getting the 85,000 damage on the extreme attacks, which was a little bit more difficult because I didn't plan accordingly, but I will show you my run with that. That included meeting that parameter. So ultimately what I had to do is I had to try and target getting as much of these prison grunts to group up as possible as I went to clear things out. Now what I tend to focus on, just because it deals a very high amount of damage, is the aerial attacks, because as you're seeing here, it takes out a fair chunk of the health bar from just the standard grunts. Now, there are 50 enemies that you'll need to defeat in order to get this clear. And as long as you have about 15 of them or so present for your extreme attack, you really shouldn't have to worry about meeting that damage as long as you can get them to group up. Now, Hulk is, of course, as being one of the strong characters, capable of lifting the forklifts, which do explode and deal a pretty massive and substantial amount of damage. I'm throwing in a couple of these wild charges, thunderclaps, other attacks as we progress through, just to cycle through some of my MP and make that more usable. But we're coming up on about the halfway point, and by the time we're hitting 35 or 30 or 35 enemies down, we'll actually be able to use our EP, or our extreme attack. So as a matter of fact, I group up here with these opponents, and there's a pretty big area of effect, and as you can see, we almost hit 400,000 damage on that attack, well surpassing the parameter for getting the attack damage on this. So now it's just a matter of clearing up some of the last characters here. We've got 2 characters with the stagger bar and then one of the fire wielders running around here as well. The wild charge is doing well enough for burning down some of the stagger bar from these characters. A couple more aerial attacks and I'm hoping to have this done. Throwing one of those flame canisters will take out the weaker of the 2 characters that are left. And with a little bit more patience and persistence, we've got the final opponent taken down as well for a 3-star clear on this rift also. Now this next rift is, in my opinion, the most challenging rift out of all of the rifts here in Gamma, let alone the solo quest rifts, and that is the Captain America trial. Now, as long as you clear it out, you can get the costume, and really you don't need to worry about focusing too much more unless you're going for the final costume that's unlocked by getting all stars in this rift. But both of these parameters for getting the 3-star clear were quite difficult. At least it took me probably a good 10 tries collectively to get all 3 stars. Even failed the challenge a couple of times trying to get it worked out. So the first of which is finishing in 1 minute and 40 seconds, and the second is taking less than 4,100 damage over the course of the fight. And there are some abilities that Cap has that will allow you to fulfill that, as well as being keen on the dodge mechanic, as this fight is a little bit tedious. And I've got a little bit of a different format here because this one was so difficult, where I'll showcase both of them to you so you can get a better feel for what you might need to do in order to get the 3-star clear for this rift. Now, as you'll see, I've got 2 different rifts here. The enemies spawn the same way virtually every single time, and the strategy that I wanted to employ to minimize damage as well as get these characters burned down as quickly as possible involved using the shield dash and heavy attacks where I throw the shield, because as long as you can knock the characters off the edge, you can knock them out without needing to expend more damage or waste MP. So with the showcase on the left, this is the one where I get the clear in under 1 minute and 40. The showcase on the right, I'm strategizing to minimize some of my damage from these opponents, and one of the things that I prioritized was this giant beam that comes across from Ultimo, because yes, it deals a very substantial amount of damage to you, but it will also deal damage to the opponents in the area. Now on the right hand side, you'll see that I am checking for a moment the parameters for this quest, because I learned that if you check out the team objectives for the quest, you can actually see how close you are to clearing out the quest under the designed parameters. And since I had affirmed that I hadn't taken an excessive amount of damage, I was able to go ahead and continue forward and getting the clear out on this rift. Now, as long as you aren't taking consistent punches to the face from these characters or from these opponents and not getting hit by Ultimo, you really don't need to worry about going over that damage threshold. Now, the guard stance that Captain America has is certainly a very big asset for reducing damage. As you saw, it even gets you around the damage from Ultimo's beams, which those alone will put you over the damage threshold that you're trying to avoid. But as long as you can either roll around those attacks or shield them, you can get out of there under the damage cap required. Now, the fifth quest that we'll be showcasing today is the survival quest, where you need to defeat Elektra. This is not the quest where you unlock Elektra. We will go through that in the next segment that we'll have a look at here. But it is important as long as you're seeking to get the full 3-star clears and get the alternate costume for Elektra from fully completing all the quests in this rift. This one is relatively straightforward. The way that I tended to go about it is, as long as you are dealing consistent damage with your characters, you will regain HP, as that's the quirk in this fight. And as long as you can get through it without any team members being incapacitated, you can get the 3-star clear in one go. And the best way to do that, we'll go ahead and showcase now. So the thing that I don't necessarily like about these rifts is before you're even allowed to move, you start taking damage. But as you can see, I'm going back to the tried and true method of using Miles Morales' Electro Web. That lays down a significant amount of damage and allows you to replenish your health. Wolverine's Adamantium Assault is quite good at burning down the stagger bar from the priests. I got a little confused there and went after Elektra, but as long as you kind of prioritize your attacks around those characters, you really don't need to worry about losing your health or becoming in danger of getting knocked out due to the health drain that takes place. And Wolverine's Adamantium Assault there, that uppercut, really does burn through the stagger bars of the bosses quite efficiently. Now, if you really want to assure that you're not taking an excessive amount of damage, you can try to target the team synergy attacks. That will affirm that all of your characters can regain health back as they're seeking to clear out this rift without any incapacitations. But we're just about to the point where we've got all of the grunts out of the way, and we should have our extreme meters up and running as well. So I've switched over to Gambit because his health was getting a little bit low, and with the staff attack here, I'm looking to burst down some more of Elektra's damage. Now, Thanos was getting dangerously low here, so I did get a couple of hits in with him to really bulk his health back up, and that was relatively effective. Now, due to the damage that we're dealing and receiving here in the corner, we all end up getting our extreme attack bars, and so to assure that we don't lose health, don't get incapacitated, and clear out the rift, I just go ahead and launch them all at the same time to burn down what's remaining of Elektra's health and get us the 3-star clear on this rift. Now, the 6th and final rift of not only today's video, but of the Gamma rifts in general, is the rift where you unlock Elektra. Now, I've already mentioned this in the how to get all of the characters video that I did a while back. So if you're here from there, well, glad to see you back. But in today's takedown of this rift, we need to keep in mind that we need to finish this rift in 3 minutes or less. And if you are going for the 3-star clear, you need to make sure that you can get this clear with 1 or fewer teammate incapacitations. So you have Kingpin that shows up during this fight, but you also have surprise appearances from, I believe, Claw and Ronan. So it's a bit of a boss rush. No, sorry, it's not Claw. It's Juggernaut. So it is a bit of a boss rush type challenge. Luckily, Ronan and Juggernaut do not show up until the second phase of the fight. So as long as you can burn down the characters, you really don't have anything to worry about. And there's really no reason why you can't burst down the characters as long as you bring in a strong enough team. So thankfully, this starts you off right inside the boss fight. And the easiest way to assure that you definitely get the damage parameter is just swarm Kingpin, because you need to get him down to that roughly 60% health mark in order to get him into his second stage. So I am resorting to one of my tried and true methods of Wolverine's Adamantium Uppercut and the falling aerial attack, as it not only deals a substantial amount of damage to Kingpin's health, but it also helps to deplete that stagger bar. We didn't get a stagger on Kingpin, but we were able to deal enough damage to him in order to trigger the second part of this fight. And now, Ronan and Juggernaut are here with their full health as well. Now, Ronan and Kingpin have a very similar fighting style, where it's very brute force, in your face, with the exception of Kingpin having the ability to, swing these giant pillars around and shoot out a couple of projectile attacks from his cane as well. Whereas Ronan, he will pester you from the background with his area of effect attacks and these purple lightning strikes that come down from the air as well. So with Miles, I'm really focusing on keeping as many of these Elektra webs up as possible. I do switch over to Gambit a couple of times to assure that we can get the danger field areas active. And with Thanos, we're just using that gauntlet punch as much as we can. I'm using this laser attack from Thanos, trying to just burn down the last little bit of some stagger bars here. And we've got all of the main bosses down at around half health. Ronan's staggering a little bit because he's been keeping back from the fight a little bit more than I would have liked him to. But here with Gambit, we got a perfect setup of his danger field, which will really allow us to kind of continually nip away at the health bars from not only the grunts in this fight, but also the larger bosses. At this point, we have Juggernaut down, which is nice because it's one less person who's causing us to jump around. And we are getting a little bit desperate with the health situation, but I do have a mastery where unleashing an ultimate or an extreme attack allows me to regain some of my health. So we gain a significant amount of health back. Kingpin's running away, trying to assure that we don't get the clear, but one final adamantium uppercut from Wolverine will do the trick, and that gets us the clear in under 3 minutes. Now, the final thing that I want to touch on is having a look at these different costumes that are unlocked through the Gamma Rift. Of course, the costumes that we have are this outfit for Spider-Man, where he... this is just gained by clearing out his rift regularly, and it's a pretty snazzy looking outfit. I'm not certain on the comic origins of that suit. This outfit for Hulk is very reminiscent of his first appearance in the comics. This apparel for Captain America, I'm not certain what the origin is on that one either. And this outfit for Elektra isn't too terribly different from her original outfit or her base outfit that she has, but it certainly is a nice addition to the game. So with that, we have come to the end of the video. That gives us all of the 3-star clears from all of the Gamma Rifts. We will go ahead and continue this series moving on to some of the more difficult rifts and walking you through how to get the 3-star clears on there. So if you're excited for those videos and any other videos that I'm putting out in the future, make sure that you're subscribed, leave a like on the video as it truly does help me out, and let me know what you think of this content in the comments down below. And if you know where these costumes have their origins from, well, I'd love to hear where they're from. So sound off in the comments down below and let me know where I've missed details on that, because I always love hearing back from you guys and learning more. Until then, thanks again for your time, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.